Hello everyone, my name is Nick Carne. I'm the Executive Officer for WineCollective of Australia, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, the first in what promises be an exciting WCA webinar program for the 2015-16 financial year. I know we have a number of first-time registrants today and some new WCA members joining us, which is terrific. Getting information and ideas out to a wide audience is an important part of WCA's expanding role as a communications conduit for the wine industry. And a special welcome to everyone participating in the Celador and Tourism Workshop in Stanthorpe in Queensland today. I gather this webinar is now a part of the afternoon's program, so welcome. Today we're looking at something that is both old and new. Wine clubs in their various guises have been with us for many years, but how they work, and indeed if they work, has changed greatly in a world of new technology and in particular new communications channels. The theory is pretty much the same. Get to know people so you can sell them wine and bring them on board as supporters as well as consumers. But if you're still doing things in the old way, then the chances are that you're not getting the results that you'd like. That's where David Gluzman comes in. David runs BlackSquare, the company behind Canada's largest wine club, the WineCollective, and also behind Black Box, a wine-specific e-commerce platform now employed with great success around the world. Here in Australia, where BlackSquare has an expanding presence, Black Box is used by the likes of McWilliams, Jim Barry, Brown Brothers and Chapel Hill to transact millions of dollars in direct-to-consumer sales. In keeping with the international theme, David is joining us today from Canada, though he will be here in Australia next week and we'll be working with him at WineTech. BlackSquare's Customer Relationship Manager for Australia, Pip Kay, is in Sydney, and WCA's Program Manager, Jen Barwick, and I are here in Adelaide. Our webinar provider, Arcaden, is helping to pull it all together. David will lead today's presentation, Pip will add the Australian context, and both are ready and able to answer any questions you want to send through. If you're new to the webinar format, I can tell you there are three ways that you can ask a question or simply make a comment, and they're set out on the screen now. You can use the comment box, you can tweet, or you can email us. The comment box is pretty straightforward, simply type and send. Jen will moderate your input, reply directly as appropriate, and send as many questions as possible through to David, to Pip and to me. If we don't get to your question in the next hour, we will get back to you later, and we will send all of you a link to access a recording of the session in your own time later. And so, with that introduction, let me welcome David and Pip and ask David to get the ball rolling by telling us a little more about BlackSquare and their approach to the modern wine club. David?
Great, thanks for that, and hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be able to run this webinar today with you all, and I've gotten a chance to take a brief look through the attendee list here, and I've recognized a few of you there, so hello again to those that I have talked to already in the past. Hopefully you guys can get a little bit out of this if some of you have met me before. I'm trying to jam in a fair bit of stuff today, and I look forward to answering some of your questions as we go along. But I'll just jump straight in, and the first couple slides is a little bit about BlackSquare, us, and kind of where we come from. So as you can see, here's a few of our team members from all over the world. We have actually offices in Canada and Australia. Our Australia team continues to grow. Right now we're at 3 people, and we're actually on the lookout for some more people to join our ever-growing team as well. Our founders, including myself, have over 12 years experience in the wine industry to date. So we know a little bit about what we're doing, and let me just give you a brief rundown of some of the stuff that we've done. So as mentioned earlier, WineCollective is what kicked off our venture into the wine space back in 2009. And then 2011, Black Box was born, and in 2014, we've been working on the global wine database, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. In regards to WineCollective, it's actually spawned into 3 sub-brands, WineCollective being an online-only presence. Tannic and Highfield are other things as well, which I'll just show you here. But in regards to WineCollective itself, it's currently the largest monthly wine club in Canada. We ship millions of dollars worth of wine every year, and it is the main reason why Black Box, the platform, actually exists. And the nice thing about that is that we actually continue to use our own software platform day in, day out ourselves. So it's actually the Black Box beta tester, and as you can see, that's the picture at the bottom of our warehouse. So we have to take care of absolutely everything when it comes to our wine clubs, both online and both the actual delivery of all the packages. Tannic, another thing that we've worked with, is actually a completely different type of wine club, whereas this is all about exclusives flash sales, and selling really hard-to-find products directly to consumers. The actual membership fee for this is between $200 and $400 a year just to have the privilege to purchase wine, and that works quite well for us as well. And last but not least, from the WineCollective branded side of things, we actually bought a liquor store earlier last year to kind of round out our fleet of how we actually sell wine to people. So instead of just selling people virtually on the internet, we actually have to talk to people face-to-face now as well. So just to be extra clear, WineCollective and BlackSquare are two totally separate entities, although I am actually a director of both of those companies and have the rare luxury of being able to learn from both what we do on the technology side and from our business-to-consumer side. So as you can see, BlackSquare, Blackbox, and Global Wine Database are our business-to-business side of the business. BlackSquare has many partners across the world, lots of payment gateways to Google, to Hootsuite, which is great for social media, Vend and Square and Lightspeed for point of sale, Amazon, you name it. This is just listing a few. Blackbox, as you've already heard, powers brands across Australia, North America, Asia, and Europe. Australia is actually our largest market, and we pay the most attention to that market for somewhat obvious reasons because of that. And everything we do is on top-tier infrastructure and technology. And last but not least, the Global Wine Database is something we've been working on for the past little while about actually sorting and taking care of all the wine information across the world directly from producers. That's just a bit of a hint in terms of what you can kind of hear from us in the future. But I want to skip quickly ahead and jump right into the meat of what today's presentation is. But before I do, I just want to dash in a little bit about our philosophy. So if you've heard me talk before, this is going to be a little bit old hat, but essentially when it comes to wine clubs, there's a couple different ways people can define the nomenclature. And the way we've defined it is there's 4 types of online commerce just generally. So let me go over those briefly. The first one is about ad hoc purchases. And this is the simplest, easiest way that people are most familiar with. Essentially, you have an online catalog. You put it online, and you just pray that people come and purchase from you. It's not exactly the best for the wine industry, as you need to be really quite large, and generally you're competing on price. So some of your discount retailers, of which I won't name them because you already know who they are, they definitely play the ad hoc game. The thing that most Australian winemakers are playing, though, is actually the targeted e-commerce game, and that actually works quite well. And targeted is all about collecting email addresses, either at cellar door or via telephone campaigns or whatnot, to get people to sign up to your newsletter. Some people will say that alone, signing up for a newsletter, is a wine club. However, we're going to refer that today as being targeted e-commerce. And the beauty about targeted e-commerce is essentially you have this list or a database of members that are interested in your brand, of which you can then email them, and then they come to their site, you come to your site, or they phone you, or they email you an order. Pretty straightforward. Takes a fair bit of effort to do that, though, but it is traditional and it does work. Now, the real bread and butter is recurring wine clubs, and this is all about putting up a couple different packs of which you ship at a fairly regular interval, whether it's monthly, quarterly, biannually, and they have a set price and a set pack that goes out to your customers. You can also talk about customized packs into the recurring as well. We can get into that a little bit later, but the essential piece of recurring is that it's you sign up, you commit money to that experience, and you receive wine packs in the future. And last but not least, and this actually covers all the 3 previous ones, is about gifting. Now, gifting is more than just saying on checkout, I want to deliver this package to someone else. If we talk about gifting in terms of wine club, this is about signing up 2 people to your database, the purchaser and the gift receiver. Now, the gift receiver has potentially never heard about your brand and is actually being introduced to your brand from someone completely different. And the beauty about that is that when they receive a wine experience, that's quite possibly one of the best experiences they can get in terms of a wine-related commerce package. For example, with WineCollective, the power of gifting is so great that in the last quarter of the year ends up doing about 60% of our year-over-year revenue. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. But enough about terminology. Let's jump into our actual tips. Now, I want to toss this over to Pip a little bit to see if we can get her to talk about the customer experience a bit. Pip?
Yeah, sure, not a problem. Thanks so much, David. So essentially, when it comes to your customers, you have to think about everything is about them, and this all comes down to the wine club and the experience that they're having through your wineries. So essentially, when your customers come in, they should be getting the VIP experience from the get-go. So you almost want to make them part of your family from the point that when they walk in, you know their name, you know who they are, and you provide them that little bit of extra experience as well. You can take them to the side and give them private tastings, offer them special lunches with the head winemaker and those sorts of things. So you really want to ensure that they really get that VIP treatment. And if they ever do call through and they have problems and those sorts of things, you want to ensure that that carries on through the customer service experience.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit to that as well is that customer experience is everything from interacting with people face-to-face to the actual emails they receive and also the packages that they open when they come to their home or office. So make sure to think about that when you're putting together a package, for example, and what's that experience like? Is the package like opening a parcel at Christmas in terms of is it a surprise? Do they know what they're getting? Is there materials in there? Are there an added goodie in there? Like, you just need to try and put yourself in their shoes to keep them excited about what they're actually doing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And one of the things that we have found to be really of great benefit to a lot of the wineries in Australia as well is that if your membership levels aren't too high, a lot of the wineries will actually put in a welcome with compliments list that's actually handwritten by one of the head winemakers or the cellar door manager. And it adds a really nice touch that when your customer receives that, they really are part of the family and part of your inner circle. So it's those little added benefits that you can definitely add on to the experience.
And Pip, do you want to talk a little bit about exclusivity?
Yeah, so this is where things start to get really, really exciting. So for your customers, there's something to really be said and to be had about having an exclusive club offer. Some of our customers currently have a capped membership and don't actually open that membership wider than what they currently offer. So having the ability to be able to offer things to your VIP customers through your club that they could not get elsewhere really is quite exciting, and people tend to resonate with that as well. It's not just things such as free shipping and all of those sorts of things, it's the items that surround the experience that you can get from being a club member, and that's really what is exciting for people.
David and Pip, can I just jump in with a question on the screen? What is considered a high membership level, do you think, in terms of number of sign-ups per month?
Sure. So in terms of a high membership level, most brands, depending on how much foot traffic you get in the door, should be able to sign up anywhere from 1 to 3 per day, which we believe is a fairly modest goal. If you can do more than 3 per day, you're really hitting it out of the park. But if you want to do some quick math, if you are actually already keeping track of how many people frequent your cellar door, if it's in the hundreds a month, if it's in the thousands or tens of thousands a month, then you just have to try and figure out, okay, what are some goals you can set for your cellar door staff, which we're going to get into here in a little bit as well. So we're definitely going to cover that in a bit more detail.
Right.
The other thing I want to mention regarding the exclusivity thing, which one of our clients actually does incredibly well, is being able to produce exclusive wines for their wine club membership. And this is something that can really push your membership over the moon in terms of their excitement for being part of your club. And one of our clients actually really pushed it even more, that they told their membership, they told their membership that they were going to be making a specific blend of a wine, and they invited all their members to come down to their cellar door to come help figure out what they were going to do and be a part of the blending experience and the tasting of the different varieties that they actually had. And then at the end of the day, they came to a consensus, and then a couple months later, they actually packaged together a Wine Club members blend, of which was sold first and foremost to Wine Club members, and was packaged together in the Wine Club packs. But then after that fact, it was actually an exclusive SKU that they then put up online for non-members to purchase. Needless to say, it went very quickly because it was something very unique and very exclusive, and worked quite well. So that's just one of many ways that you can deal with exclusivity.
And just as a side note to add to that as well, I think that exclusivity comes down to the fact that people want what other people have and they don't. So if you can really make it exclusive using some of the tools that David and I have spoken about, it's really going to add value to your wine club.
Which is a great segue into the next slide, which is being very sarcastic in terms of pretending to add value, but you can actually add a lot of value. And it doesn't have to be financial in any way. And I think, it's a really good point, is that when it comes to putting together wine club packs, it's not necessarily about price. It's about the value that you're putting together. Now, what sort of value you can put in there is very dependent on your brand and what you have access to. Do you have on-premise restaurant? Do you have partnerships with like hotels nearby? Can you do something for your memberships regarding these other businesses or other parts of your own business that you have access to? Like from the restaurant perspective, anytime Wine Club member comes and books a restaurant thing, they get a free sparkling aperitif to begin their meal with, for example, is one way to do things. Pip, do you want to join or chime in with a couple other things that we do to add value?
Yeah, definitely. One thing I'd always recommend to the customers that I deal with here in Australia is that you don't necessarily have to discount your wine to get customers on board. They automatically think that when someone comes to your cellar door that people aren't going to buy unless they're getting, 10, 20% off and those sorts of things. And what I have found is that the second you start to discount your brand, you can actually in some ways devalue it. So we say, let's look at things differently and let's say, okay, if it is going to be something financial, as opposed to offering them 10% off on a 12-pack of wine, why don't we offer them 11 bottles with a 12th bottle free? That way, you're not actually lowering the price of your brand and the customer is still paying full price, but they're getting something that isn't added on value. And financially, it can actually work out better for yourself. A couple of the other things I wanted to add was also value can be experience-based as well. So we say to a lot of our customers here in Australia and over in Canada as well, definitely look at the experiences that you can bring to your wine club. I had one customer that actually invited a whole bunch of their wine club members to come over and stomp grapes during vintage, and then they got to have lunch with the winemaker, and then afterwards they got sent this beautiful bottle of wine that they had stomped. And the ability to be able to take that to dinner and tell that story to your friends is for me, that's priceless. So it's the value that you can add surrounding your wine club that can really make a difference.
Absolutely. And I think, this segues right into tuning your cellar door. And just to jump right into it, in terms of adding value, I think there's an easy thing to look at in terms of comparison of how airlines have actually added value. Now, airlines can be kind of sneaky in terms of what they do in their points programs. It's not always the best value, but there are things we can learn from it. And one of the things that we've seen a couple of our clients do quite successfully, especially the higher trafficked cellar doors, is creating a premier access lane for their members to self-identify. So if you have, your cellar door and it's 3 people deep or even more than that, if a VIP member comes in the door, they don't really want to wait in line. They want to be treated with a bit more status, and they likely should. So if you can actually put an area where those members can walk up or identify themselves, you can make sure to try and prioritize those people when they come in the door. Another great thing about having people identify is that you should be asking almost everyone that comes to your cellar door if they're a wine club member. And that may sound a little bit aggressive, but trust me, it isn't. Because if you can start off a conversation with people, it's like, have you been here before? Where are you from? Are you a wine club member? start with, if you're a wine club member, they're either going to say yes or they're going to say no. And if they say no, keep going. You can be like, okay, no problem. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But you've seeded the fact that all of a sudden they know that you have a wine club. Job done. You can then bring that into the conversation later. But if they are a wine club member, great. Ask who they are. Look them up in your database or your CRM or whatever you have access to in terms of your membership list. And then try and find out as much information as you can, as quickly as you can, about them so that you can make that interaction with that customer incredibly relevant. So for example, if you have a good CRM system, you might have notes in there from your cellar door staff saying last time they were at your cellar door, they were here celebrating an anniversary. You can maybe say, you know, how's your wife doing, or how are the kids, or whatever you can think of. Anything you can make that personal connection at the cellar door goes a really long way. Granted, if they're not a member, the job gets a little bit harder. Pip, do you want to talk a bit about how to tune the cellar door for the members that you have yet to get?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, David. So essentially, one of the best ways to go about this is to continually seed the club through the tasting. So what I have recommended to some of our customers is that they always have a bottle of their special club reserve or something like that that is only available to club members, and offer it up as a potential of, listen, I've got this bottle open, it's club member only, but I'll give you a little taste. And that lets people get a tiny taste of exactly what the club experience is like. So it's a little tester for them. And then from there, you continue to feed it. So this wine that we're tasting now is the Chardonnay. It's the 2012 release, and it is available through our wine club. And let them know what wines they are tasting that are available through the wine club. Then ensure that you always have information on hand that is available that actually lists the wine club features and what you get as being a club member. And that allows them to then be able to make the decision as they are going through the tasting and work out whether they would like to be a club member. And then it's as simple as asking, would you like to become a member? And just ensuring that people feel like that they're not locked in if they do want to become a member. One of the biggest problems that we have seen with wine clubs and signing people up is that people, the second they hear subscription, they automatically think, oh no, gym membership or something like that, where they're going to be locked in. But we say if you can keep your membership very fluid and allow people to come and go as they need to, even suspend their subscription or cancel or transfer it to someone else, even change the packages, it makes people feel a lot more comfortable. So those are some of the tips that I would definitely recommend. David, did you have anything else you wanted to add on that?
A few small things, and I think we'll take some of the questions that are coming in. But before we do, some of the other basics as well is, having beautiful displayed packs at your cellar door. All these casual, soft, non-invasive ways of pitching your wine club to memberships when they come in helps make the job of your cellar door staff easier. That would probably be one of the easier things to do very quickly.
David, can I jump in and, as you suggested, get your answers to a couple of questions that are coming through that cover the material you've talked about in the last few minutes? The first from Sandra. What, if anything, is your experience with exclusive branded merchandise as an added value?
Great question. So, anything that you can toss in to add value is going to be great. In terms of, branded merchandise, in terms of the value that the consumer can perceive, it's very dependent on your brand. But, we've seen great success with branded wine openers, for example. Those are pretty rare for people to be annoyed at getting in their package because you could always use another one, or at the very least, they can gift it to someone else. So I totally recommend it.
Another question on a more technical point. What CRM systems do you recommend?
Well, in this case, it's a little bit hard for me not to toot our own horn, so I'll do that first, but I'll get to the point after, is that from a CRM perspective, BlackBox takes care of the entire process. You can load up BlackBox on your computer, you can load it up on your mobile, whatever it may be, and when people come in, you can look them up, add notes, so on and so forth. But if you don't have access to Blackbox, really all it matters is that you have the information readily available. So if you have it in a spreadsheet, have that spreadsheet handy. Or if you have it on paper, have the paper handy. Granted, if it's on paper, it's a liability, so be careful where you put it. You don't want someone to pick that up and walk out the door with it, obviously. But otherwise than that, whatever system that you have, as long as you can make it easy for information to go in and information to come out, you should be in good shape.
And a third question before we get back to the presentation from Diane, and this builds on the previous question about numbers. What's a reasonable expectation about the percentage of your customer base you should be aiming to convert to club members?
That's actually a great segue into the next slide. So in regards to answering that question directly, it's entirely dependent on your motivation. And not just like motivation of you as an owner or a cellar door staff person, but motivation of the people walking into your cellar door. Are they enjoying the experience? Are they enjoying the product? How are they being sold? So all those things come into play. We've seen customers pre and post working with us, for example, getting one every so often, one member every couple weeks in terms of paying Wine Club member. And software or systems you put into place, they're not the magic bullet. Like you can have the best website with the best CRM platform in the background. If you don't have incentivized staff and it's not instituted within your organization to try and convert Wine Club members, you're not going to get them. It's the hardest thing to actually sell. But I'm going to toss this back to Pip again and talk a bit more pragmatically about some of the things that she's seen in regards to this.
Thanks, David. One of the greatest things that we have seen is the effect that incentive for your staff can actually have on growing your database and your wine club. I actually had one customer who was signing up on average about 5 people per month, which is quite low for them. Then they turned around and said to all of their staff, okay, well, if you guys hit 60 club members this month, we will take you all out to lunch on the company during your work hour. And all of a sudden, they had 65 members. So it's amazing what an incentive, being an experience or even a financial incentive, can actually do for your staff. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I have found in the Australian market. And also ensuring that the person that manages your club and that interacts with your customers is really an enthusiastic person and really believes in the club and believes in your offering. It's very hard for someone to sign up to a club and to become enthused themselves about something when the person that is offering it to them is almost a wet mop, if you'd like to call it. So it's very important to ensure that the customer service skills that come from your staff are above and beyond, essentially.
Right. And, to jump back into some numbers again, that I think some people find maybe a little bit shocking sometimes is, again, depending on how you structure your wine club and how expensive your wines actually are, some numbers to play with is, how many people can you sign up per day, which we talked a little bit about earlier. Can you sign up 1 a day? Can you sign up 3 a day, 10 a day? What is it? But with that, it's, again, very much dependent on how much traffic you get and how you actually structure things. But outside of that, if you're signing up 1 a day, let's say that equates to roughly 300 members in a year. 300 members a year is about halfway to anywhere between $500,000 and $750,000 a year business, if structured properly. So again, the startings of a wine club can be really challenging because lots of things are new. You may not have a lot of knowledge or support or systems in place, but if you work at it, the dividends come in a great way. And to speak specifically about numbers about about wine club members is that on average, what we've seen in the industry, and actually you can find this information from other sources as well, mostly coming out of California, is that wine club members on average stick around for 24 to 26 months, so just over 2 years. During that time, those members spend on average about $600 a year. Again, depends on the prices of your products. When you compare that to an ad hoc member, so someone who's, just shopping online or targeted e-commerce database member, those people will spend between $50 to $100 a year. So you're looking at a 6 times greater revenue channel per person that comes through your wine club channel. So we highly encourage you to explore it if you haven't already. It is the way to go, but again, if you don't incentivize your staff to some extent, either with just pure motivation or whether or not you give them a free car, which we're kind of joking at. We haven't seen anyone give a free car. However, we have seen a client do a Vespa giveaway, which we thought was pretty impressive. But at the end of the day, even if it's financial, if it's product, if it's experience-based, whatever it may be, you could actually watch your staff really kick it up a notch.
David, can I
Is
ask,
there anything else?
is there the potential to incentivize your wine club members to basically become ambassadors and bring their friends on board?
That's a great point, and you absolutely can. And there's a couple different ways to do it. You can do it using customized vouchers that you can send out to your membership to be like, invite a friend, give them 10% off joining the wine club, and then you can keep track of all that, and then you can send them out a free bottle of wine or give them a credit on their account. There's a lot of different ways to actually do that. Pip, can you think of any other ones? That's the first one that came to mind for me.
Off the top of my head, those are probably the ones that I would stick with myself, to be honest. Those are the ones that have worked best for the customers that I work with.
A good question just came through from Kristen, David, and or Pip. Do you look to reward length of membership, or do you look to reward dollar spend, or are you looking to reward both in terms of rewarding your loyal customers?
I'm happy to answer that. In relation to rewarding your loyal customers, I think there are definitely some ways you can do that. Harking back to the experience, that's definitely something that works very well. Offering them a once-a-year lunch with the head winemaker and those sorts of things is fantastic. But also doing things such as, rewarding them with first access to back-release vintages and those sorts of things. You can have reward points and loyalty schemes. You be careful with those, but those are definitely something that you can do. And also offer them the occasional coupon or something like that does allow them to have free shipping, or maybe give them 10% off for a certain time for Christmas or something like that. So I think definitely having those added benefits and those extra rewards when someone has been a member for so long can definitely keep them interested.
Yeah, and I strongly agree with that, Pip. And the one example I wanted to give from WineCollective, actually, it's kind of a funny story that we have this member who's been with us for quite some time, a couple years, and she's from a smaller town, and she's incredibly generous every Christmas. She sends out upwards of 10 WineCollective gifts across her town to her friends and family and whomever. And we're like, whoa, that's a significant amount of money. That's in the thousands of dollars. And year over year she's done this. And after the first year we thought, okay, well that was really neat that she did that. And then the second year she did that. And immediately we got in touch with her and we're like, hi, we've noticed that you're being an incredible ambassador for our brand. We've actually gone out of our way to give you your own coupon that's just for you, of which you can then purchase products at a bit of a discount. So by all means, keep going. And then we also actually sent her a Christmas gift from ourselves as well. So that put put her over the moon with us. And she continues to do that. I think if she does it this year, this will be the 4th year that she spends, on average, I think, $3,000 in December purchasing gifts for other people. So if you can pay attention to your database and what your customers are doing by running reports and seeing their spend or how long they've been a member, we highly encourage doing things for them. It keeps them around for a long time. And like it or not, your VIP members that stick around for a long time or spend a lot of money with you are huge brand ambassadors. These are the people that are proud about the product they're getting from you. They're likely sharing it with friends at the dinner table, and they can end up talking about your brand for hours to tons of people that you normally don't have any access to.
We're getting some interesting comments in the chat box from people putting forward their own suggestions about how they incentivize staff, from gift vouchers to lunches to actual wine at different values. So we've obviously got some conversations starting there.
That's great. It's awesome to see. But I think let's move on a little bit, because we could talk about incentives and whatnot for ages. We can definitely come back to it depending on how we do on time. I just realized we're about 40 minutes in. So there's not a ton of slides left to go, but I definitely want to make sure we get through it. So the next part here is about really listening, discussing, and recording. And we touched base on this a little bit in regards to using a CRM and whatnot. But this really starts to delve into, talking to people face-to-face, but talking to them on social media, talking to them on your website if you have a way to allow people to comment or rate your wines after they receive them. But at the same point in time, you really don't want to abandon customers who cancel either. Like, if people are canceling, you want to find out why they're canceling. And you can then tweak your wine club experience based on the feedback that you're actually getting. So don't make it a static thing of which you're like, we think we know exactly how this is going to work and what our customers want. I can almost guarantee you don't. Because your customers are going to push you in a way that you may not think about. Pip, is there anything you want to add in regards to that?
Yeah, definitely. The other one I would add is definitely keep detailed notes about your customers. You really want to get to know them and get to know who they are, what they like, and what they enjoy. If they're coming in and it is their wedding anniversary, it's their 50th wedding anniversary, keep a note on it so that when you next see them, you can follow up with them and say, hey, listen, how was your time for your wedding anniversary, and those sorts of things. So definitely keep as many notes as you possibly can. Also record, if your CRM system doesn't do this already, definitely record what they are purchasing and keep a note of it, because that will actually help you to tune any of your marketing that you want to do to them. So I think that's probably a good segue into the next slide, David.
That it is indeed, because when you actually send out emails, you want them to be as poignant and on topic as possible for your membership. So the examples on the screen are a couple different emails, but emails that you receive after you get a purchase, like, you should know about all the purchases you get and the moment they happen so that you can actually act on them. But then as well, what are the emails that people receive after they purchase? What are the call to actions in those emails? And then the last part of that example there is about, when you contact them, what are you trying to get them to do? Do you want them to come interact with your brand? Do you want them to come purchase something? But really, you should be, with any email you put together, have a primary, secondary, and tertiary call to actions. And for those that don't know that term, call to actions, essentially, it's something you're almost yelling at the person on the other end to be like, click this, do this. And then one of the three things that you have on there, they're likely going to pick. If you have more than three main things you want people to do, think twice about it. I sometimes have seen some of our customers or different people in the wine industry send out these massive emails, which is 100 different things you can do. Maybe that's working for you. From the numbers that we've seen, it doesn't. It's a lot. But at the same point in time, the quantity of email you send is a very carefully thought out, carefully executed thing that you need to be aware of. And just to give you a brief example from WineCollective, every single time we send out an email, we see people cancel. So, and the reason why they cancel is because it's a reminder to be like, oh, hi, we're from WineCollective, how's it going, do this, this, or this, in terms of like, buy more or not or whatever. So we generally send out from the WineCollective brand 1 email a month, tops. However, the way that we can actually send out more email to customers and get those secondary and tertiary call to actions is by making sure that when we do email them, and this is the biggest opportunity for email and open rates, is about the actual shipment they're about to receive. So if you have an Australia Post tracking number and you can send it to your customer, the probability that they will open that email is roughly 70%. Versus a normal email campaign, which I believe is under 10. And simply stated, you're receiving something, it has shipment information, absolutely, I want to know about it. Okay, well that's your primary call to action right there. What else do you want people to do? Do you want to tell them about an event that you have going on? Do you want people to purchase tickets to something? Do you want people to come rate their wine or buy more wine? Anyway, just kind of scratching the surface of it, but that's the thing you want to keep in mind of. But of course, when you send out email, making it customized to be like, hello David, how's it going? And being able to talk about potentially the wine that was last received, how did you like the Chardonnay, for example. All those little things go a really long way. People expect to be treated in a personal way. And we'll have a tip at the end about what you shouldn't do in regards to email, but I'll save it until we get to that. Pip, is there anything else you want to add regarding to email?
I just wanted to reiterate the fact that you don't want to over-contact your customers via email. We all know how many emails we get a day, and if we're sitting there reading through an essay email from a winery, we're most likely going to put that in the too hard basket. So definitely don't over-email them. Keep it relevant, and if someone's purchasing, Shiraz, send them information about the Moscato. So definitely keep it relevant and don't contact them too often.
David, you touched briefly on opening rates. Sue asked the question, what is the email opening rate typically for the wine industry compared to wine club specific emails? Do you know anything in that area?
Well, I can tell you specifically about the numbers that we know from our own brands. I can't tell you from what we've seen from our customers because that's private. But from what we've seen is that general members that sign up for an email list, the open rates are fairly atrocious, like in the single percentages, which is why we always hear about people being like, I need to grow that database. I need thousands of people in that database because it's just a numbers game. Whereas when you talk to the people that are part of your wine club, the open rate for that is generally really high. Because again, if you think about the mentality of the customer you're interacting with, why did a wine club member decide to be a part of something that your brand is offering that A, costs money, and B, has some sort of commitment, whether it's the next pack or financial or whatever. So if you're talking to them, they're likely going to listen more, and what we've seen with WineCollective has been likely, on average over the year, about 40% open rate. And that even goes into, us trying to do a promotion every so often. The open rates are generally quite high. But this actually segues beautifully into, digging into your data and actually seeing what's working and tuning it. Because again, the thing is about customers and open rates in the wine industry or any industry is that it's just that. It's just numbers. And until you can actually measure what you're doing, you need to figure out how well you're performing and then set out your own goals to say, oh, our open rate right now is in the single-digit percentages. We want to bring that up into the double digits. Okay, well, start tuning it. So, for example, if we generally have worked a lot with a program called MailChimp, which is an EDM platform for sending out marketing emails. The amount of analytics we can get into is sensational. You can see how many people open it, on what sort of device they open it, at what time they open it, what people click on, so on and so on and so forth. So because of that, you can actually fine-tune what you're doing and see what works and what doesn't. And you can actually A/B test that stuff as well.
David, there's a comment on the screen from Trish Barry who says that rough opening rates here in Australia for email are about 25% from the data that she's seen, but they've seen opening rates of 40 to 70% for WineCon members. And she makes a comment it's important to segment your database, not to just sort of blast out to everybody and analyse the whole database as one.
That's a great point. Thanks for chiming in with that, Trish, because you're absolutely right. Segmenting your customers is really important to being successful with your email campaigns. And I think that speaks to what I was saying earlier about, don't send the same email to all your membership, or if not, that's on the last slide for today, I'd say that. But yeah, great points.
Yeah, and now some more figures there. Sue suggests they see over 30% general and over 60% for their WineCon members for their opening rates.
That's great. Sounds like you guys are doing the right thing so far. Good work.
And just on a side note on that as well, if you are segmenting, you're actually going to find that your ability to upsell to these people that you have segmented to is a lot higher than just a general email database that you're just blasting to.
For sure. I think the other thing I want to make note again with the data and some of the stuff you see on the slide there is if you're not looking at your website analytics, I highly encourage you to do so. There's lots of information there. It can be grossly overwhelming, but at the same point in time, you can see, depending how you set up your website, everything about how people are interacting with it, how many people are coming, what people are clicking on, how many people are actually purchasing, so on and so on and so forth. So by all means, I highly recommend if you don't have Google Analytics installed on your website today, do it. It's free, and you can dive in. There are other tools out there as well that you can use. Some are a bit more premium and cost more money, but honestly, Google Analytics does 90% of what you need in terms of analyzing your website data.
David, another question came through about this idea of segmenting your database. What segments would you recommend that they break it down into?
Well, the basic ones right off the bat would be segmenting people that have purchased or not historically. So if you have a regular database of people that are not Wine Club members, do not send them the same email. If you have Wine Club members, you can send very specific emails to each different subscription type. So if you have someone that's joined in like the all red pack, or they've joined the mixed wine pack or the premium pack, send out to those segments differently if you can. They don't have to be grossly different. Like you can just change an image. You can make the copy a little different. Make sure it's relevant. Don't try selling someone that's in a red-only wine pack, a bunch of white wine. That's likely not going to go over well. Tune it. Like really try and tune that segment. But I'd be curious to hear what other people in the chat room here are currently doing with their segments as well. Because we've got someone saying about region, spend, and length of time or age. Yeah, like the spend is definitely a good one. Although, if you're going to start segmenting by spend, I think it's actually pretty simple. Take the top 1% or whatever number you want to play with, maybe the top 10% of your membership, and tailor something super specifically. And I'll tell you what, maybe go even further if you're doing the top 1%. Don't email them, call them. Give them a personal phone call and be like, hey, how's it going? How's your last pack? Just want to check in, so on and so forth. There's lots of different ways that you can get in touch with their customers, and generally that top 1% of the spend level are worth that extra effort.
So yes, there's a bit of conversation going on online about that. I think we've obviously touched an important point here. I'm conscious we've only got about 10 minutes to go, David, so I'll let you get back to us.
Perfect. So another thing here is digging into your social. Pretty straightforward. I'm not going to go too deep into it outside of the fact that there are analytics based on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can go take a look at it, find out more information, see how people are actually interacting with you on those channels. Twitter is actually really powerful in terms of their analytics. You can measure every single interaction with you there. But at the same point in time, one of our partners that we work with is called Hootsuite. They're a social media tool of which you can schedule all your tweets and posts and all that sort of stuff. And there's also a lot of analytics. Moving along, this one is kind of a no-brainer, but I have to say it. Your website, your materials, you have to have the best information available for every single one of your products. So if you're doing a wine club pack, make sure it's really descriptive. It has a lot of information. People understand what they're getting into. A tangent on that is try and not have a cell phone style type contract or a bank type contract attached to your wine club. Make it easy for people to join. Make it easy for people to cancel. Don't worry about committing people into huge contracts. It's not just a headache. Get people to join, blow them away with an experience. But back to the information. If you have the best information on your website, people won't leave your website. If they're leaving your website, you've lost them. It's almost guaranteed. So if they're going to go search for your wine and Cracker comes up or Dan Murphy's comes up, it's done. Like you're not getting back. So if you have the best information, you get rid of that motivation, people will then purchase from you. Moving along, we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty of some of the nerdiness of this, but mobile, everyone hears about it. These are our numbers that we've seen within our platform. Year over year, this goes up roughly about 10% every year since 2012. So 10, 20, 30, now 40%. We've seen some of our customers are already over half of all their users come from mobile. Don't forget about it. It is absolutely critical. Now, when it comes to actually running your wine club, the more you can automate, the happier you're going to be in terms of an owner, but also in terms of making sure that you don't have any human errors that go into automating your shipping, problems in terms of breakage and so on and so forth, but also things that you want to ship as often as possible. So if you're shipping very often, you get a lot of people actually purchasing from you. How do you stay on top of that? How do you keep that customer level high? Think about those things. Use systems that allow you to wait as much as possible. Which dovetails into efficiency. Interact with Australia Post and not having to manually type in every single waybill or every single customer. Not only saves you time, but it's going to make you not want to lose your mind, essentially. Like the fun part of getting your club members and picking the packs and getting it out there and counting the money, essentially, at the end of the day, but you have to be efficient at it. Otherwise, how you grow from a couple dozen members to hundreds of members and potentially thousands of members. Some of the largest clubs that we've worked with have over 5,000 recurring wine club members that purchase from them. How do you do that? Can you grow to that size? Have those goals and just keep in mind the efficiencies to actually make that happen.
That's a question I was going to ask, David. Is there a danger that you can overreach with your wine club goals and almost grow too big?
Well, that's the thing, and that you can look at it as a double-edged sword. If you're not equipped to dealing with a growing wine club, what's the worst that can happen? You have to potentially turn people away. If you have to turn people away, then all of a sudden your club can be even more exclusive, right? You can put a limit on your club and say it's a 100-member club or it's a 1,000-member club. Like, for example, Chateau Ste. Michelle out of Oregon, their membership is capped at 5,000 members, and which is tremendous. It's ridiculous, actually, how many people that is. That's like a $4 million a year business at least. Now, they actually have another club, which is just a waiting list. So because they have 5,000 members and then they have a waiting list for people that want to join the club, no one leaves or very few people quit, right? So you have like the best of both worlds, which allows certain brands to then tweak how they actually produce their wines and where they allocate their product. They could potentially start doing a little bit less retail and focus more on direct-to-consumer. It's something you just need to be aware of and think about. So I don't really think you can actually worry about going too big.
A question on a slightly different topic, David, from Belinda. What do you think about custom packs, where the customer can choose which wines they want?
For sure. So custom packs are great. Being able to give people the ability to pick and choose what they want is fantastic. If people are that motivated to know what they want, give them that capability to do so. However, when you think about it from the business perspective, how much can you automate custom packs? How often do those wines change year over year? Are your vintages different blends year over year? Sometimes you have more production versus less year over year. What do you promise those customers? So in terms of actually structuring it, we've actually seen people structure their custom packs several different ways. Pip, do you want to maybe jump in for a second and talk about that?
Yeah, so, well, with the custom packs, like David says, it can work really, really well, but for the curated packs, essentially what you want to do is you want to ask your customer to put their faith in you that you know your wine. No one knows it better than you. So let us choose the best wine for you. And you can do that in a few ways in covering off a couple of different sectors of your market. You can have your red pack, your white pack, and your mixed red and white pack. Or you could do what some of our customers do, which is take their customers through a journey of discovering the wine. You start out as a novice, and then you become an adventurer, and then you become an expert. And from that, your different price tiers change as well. So those are just a couple of ideas, and then, looking at potentially having your lower range of your wines, and then going all the way up to your, single vineyard reserve type wines. So those are just a couple of options that you can have.
Yeah, and just as a footnote to that, again, custom packs are great, but at the same point in time, in terms of the automation and efficiencies of custom packs, that's where they can sometimes falter a bit. So if you have the resources to build out those packs, by all means, do it. And just again, to tell you some numbers, what we've seen in terms of ad hoc or targeted sales versus wine club packs, I didn't actually talk about this, and it's worth noting quickly, is that when you get an ad hoc order or custom pack, you need to look at every order individually. Be like, oh, okay, this order came in, they want 3 of this, 2 of that, 1 of those, so on and so forth. You have to go pick and pack, put it in, make sure the weigh bill gets on that box correctly, make sure whatever added value stuff you're putting in there is in the right box, and you get it out. So that takes X amount of time. Whereas if you have a curated pack, as Pip was talking about, you can have 100 of pack A, 300 of pack B, 500 of pack C, and those additions, like pack A series, are all exactly the same pack. What we've measured ourselves in WineCollective is that it's a 20-to-1 in terms of efficiency. So you can build 20 curated wine club packs in the time that it takes you to build 1 ad hoc pack. So just things to keep in mind.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, David, I see you've got some quick tips up on the screen. They might be interesting to switch to now.
Sure, and this is just like my last slide. We've talked about it a little bit, but it's worth noting to end on, is that, don't email everyone the same email. I think we've really hit that pretty hard over the course of this webinar. The other point here is don't over-discount. Really, if you can, don't discount at all. Or if you do, make it not the reason why people are doing it, which goes into the price thing. There's actually a great article from HBR today, the Harvard Business Review. Let me just grab this. I'll put it in the chat room if people want to check it out afterwards. It's about how changing your prices actually can negatively affect your experience, and how if you change your prices a lot, people start paying attention to the price more than they pay attention to the product or the experience. But I'll leave it at that. Click on the link if you're curious to read more. And then moving on from that as well is, don't expect to sign up and please 100% of people. And I think this is something that we have to remind ourselves of, is that, what is your tolerance as a business? Can you do a great user experience for 80% of the people that join your wine club? Or is it 90% of your people? Is it 99%? How far do you want to go? How much of the extra mile can you do? So when you get those potential customers that are a bit more high maintenance, or they're really a little bit difficult to deal with, sometimes they're maybe not the person that you want to be part of your club. Sometimes you have to make those hard decisions to be like, maybe the wine club isn't for you. Feel free to, have a custom pack or purchase on an ad hoc basis, so on and so forth. Just make sure you focus on the majority of your customers is essentially what we're talking about when it comes to wine club. And last but not least, like said earlier, wine clubs are the hardest thing to sell. They're the hardest thing to sell their door. They're the hardest thing to sell via email or online, but they give you the most amount of ROI. They give you the best customers with the longest lifetime value and the highest rate of return. So don't give up early. Push through. If you want to find out more about, what else you can do, because, an hour to go over on broad things can be a bit hard sometimes, we're available to talk to you at any point in time. I'm actually going to be at the WineTech conference next week in Adelaide. So if you're there, feel free to come say hello and feel free to pick my brain if you'd like. Otherwise, like I said at the start, we've got a staff in Australia, currently in Sydney, Melbourne, and maybe Adelaide at some point in the near future. So keep that in mind. We're really easy to talk to. Pip's great. Feel free to reach out to her. There's her email address on the screen. And that's about it. I'm not sure if we have any more time to answer any other questions before signing off.
I don't think so. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of questions happening. A reminder to everybody that we will be sending you a link that you can access this webinar, and we'll continue the conversations later. David is actually joining Jen and I next week at an actual presentation at WineTech, so we're really looking forward to that. Thank you both very much for that session. I think it's one of the best attended webinars we've had, and judging by the chat and the feedback, incredibly valuable. So thank you, David and Pip. Before I go, a reminder that we actually have 2 webinars for you next month. August. Registrations are already open for the one that you can see on the screen on the 4th of August, when we'll be working with the AGWA, looking at new research into winery visitation and how it flows through to sales. Not on the screen, but 2 weeks later on the 18th of August, Trish Barry from Mastermind Consulting, who as always has been heavily involved in the chat online today, will present a special session looking at the use of Instagram as part of a winery social media strategy. As always, both those sessions will be free to WCA members, so if you're not a member, you've paid for today, you might like to consider joining up. $170 a year for an individual member, or $90 for regional members. I think it's exceptional value. And we have a new winery membership that's proving very popular with some added benefits, specifically targeting wineries out there as part of WCA's role. So thank you again, David and Pip. Thank you all for attending. We look forward to joining you for our webinars next month. Goodbye all.
Thanks, everyone.